Hello, everyone. This is David Krueger. Welcome back to the channel. This is David Krueger, the Creator's Apprentice. I have spent many years in and around personal development as a personal apprentice to Kevin Trudeau, as many of you know, a high-level member of the Brotherhood, a very successful creator, created billions in sales, the infomercial king, New York Times best-selling author, and the founder of a wonderful private club called the Global Information Network, which is bringing the training given to the world's most elite families to anyone who might step up and want it. And what Kevin has been doing in the last 6 months or so is he has been offering, among all of the other trainings that he offers, a very special thing called Fly on the Wall, something only done up to this point within secret societies. And in a Fly on the Wall training, someone can come and spend 24 hours in his home, observe him, observe the success habits that make him who he is, observe how he spends his day, observe how he uses his energy to create his reality. And if you've been following this channel for a while, you have heard some pretty wild stuff already. I've given my own account. I've had a few other friends who have spent personal time, 24 hours with Kevin. And today is no exception. We have an old friend of mine, Brian Debates, who is a high-level gin member and a very successful guy in his own right. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you having me on here.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on. For our audience, Brian, before we get started, who is Brian Debates? Who is the guy who came to this club, who came to Kevin Trudeau? Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So, man, I joined way back in the early days of gin in 2009. And I actually joined before there was a club officially. We had Your Wish is Your Command, which is it was a CD set back in that day. It was a box CD set that I would listen to in my car. Of course, today people don't listen to CDs anymore. So we have just the audios, but I listened to those CDs for about 4 or 5 months before there was ever a gin event. And so I joined way back in '09. It was $1,000 at that time to join. I did not have anywhere close to $1,000 to my name, nonetheless, in my bank account. But Kevin was the original introducer of the club on that CD 14 from back then. And as soon as I heard it, I knew I had to be a part of it. And so I borrowed the money to get in the club. And so, a little bit about who I was at that time. I was a personal trainer then. I still am a personal trainer now. I train people. But I didn't have the money to join the club. Money was to be a concern for me. There wasn't much of it. Emotionally, looking back now, I realized I was an emotional wreck. I didn't think so at the time. That just felt like normal to me. But now looking back, especially after doing the processes that I've done, the money and the relationship processes, which is a whole different conversation in and of itself. Um,
Yeah.
I really needed the club for the emotional as well as the financial, as well as the, training on relationships in the system and all that stuff. So I was a guy who really struggled in life, although I was a basically happy, content guy. And I was in the club for a while, left for a long stretch, and then came back in the club. And the progress that I had the first few years that I was in the club sort of kept me on an upward trajectory when I was gone from the club. So the training works, even if you don't do it 100%, which I did not. And as soon as I got back in the club in 2022, my life really started to skyrocket, in many different ways, but especially in terms of my relationships and my self-confidence. Financially, of course, I've gotten
Okay.
better. So the old Brian versus the new Brian is like somebody else stepped into my body, and is now living a different life than
Outstanding.
I was 17 years ago, so quite a bit has changed.
Outstanding. Brian, do you think that that could happen for anybody if they decided to do what you did? Join this club, engage in it, do the training, do the processes, which are another conversation. They blow out unbelievable amounts of energy blockages you have in certain areas, but we can't even get into that here. Just know that that'll be coming in the future, guys. Yeah, would you think anybody
Absolutely.
can do this if they really do it?
I know anybody can because I have, and there's still so much more to go. I mean, I think we all know, many of us, we apply and we do the best we can, or maybe close to the best we can, but there's so much more we can do in terms of the training and in terms of plugging in. And even still, you've seen so much benefit. I've seen you change over the years. Um, I've seen so much benefit. I've done it myself. If I can, anybody can, but I've also seen so many other people change and grow and blossom within the club. So absolutely, I don't think it can happen. I know it can happen because everybody I know who has engaged in the training has seen massive positive change in their life. And there are people I know that joined the club that really didn't engage in the training, that ended up leaving the club because they didn't see the
Yep.
benefit. And it's just like I'm a trainer, I speak gym language. A lot of people join the
Yeah.
gym and they never exercise, and then they go,
Yeah.
this exercise stuff doesn't work. I don't like this gym."
Yeah, the Global Information Network is the same way. You join the club, and working on it from the inside, we see that attrition. People they don't log into the website, they don't show up to any events, and then they see these membership dues hit their account every month. Like, what am I paying for? Well, you're paying for nothing if you're not using it. It's the same thing with the gym membership. So it's
Absolutely.
like whatever you do, you got to get in there and get the benefit of it. But there's so much benefit to be had. So Brian, you've been through all of this training. You have had massive increases in your finances. You've had massive increases in your relationships. All this training put on by this guy, Kevin Trudeau, this master. So what was it that motivated you? I mean, and what were you thinking to be able to go spend 24 hours observing him? What was your impetus to doing that? What got you to put the time and the investment in doing that?
Yeah. Well, it was it was that decision really was prompted, and I'll tell a short story, by the first gin event that I ever went to, which was in 2009. And that was Kevin discussing the affiliate program that we had at that time, which was you were
Mm-hmm.
incentivized to get other people to join the club. If you knew people that the club would benefit and they joined, you would get a percentage of their membership dues and a percentage of their monthly dues. And this was a meeting that trained people on that. So I wanted to learn how to do that because I wanted to learn how to make more money. And I had already seen
Mm-hmm.
benefit just from listening to Your Wish is Your Command in the weekly
Sure,
communications with Kevin. So Kevin was a special
sure.
guy right from the get go. Right? I knew this. I had also read Natural Cures. That's how I got connected to Kevin and to the club. Was I read Natural Cures back in 2007. Everything I applied in there worked incredibly well.
Mm.
And I realized, wow, natural medicine works. And wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. And you just had this
Okay.
feeling. I read the first chapter of the book, like there's something different about this guy. I can feel it.
Mm.
I've never encountered somebody like this before. And so at the first meeting,
Okay.
I was sitting in the back of the room. I was very shy. I didn't know anybody. A lot of other people knew each other because they came over from another group, and they were all dressed pretty nice. I thought I was dressed nice, but I didn't look nice compared to, how they were dressed. And so I was sitting in
Sure.
the back, not talking to anybody, and I was reading Psycho-Cybernetics, just waiting for Kevin to come in and start the meeting. And as I was sitting there reading, I felt something shift in the entire room. And it was almost like you could hear it. You could hear the whole pitch just increase really abruptly. It was almost like, the energy just sort of conglomerated in the middle of the room and just sort of shot this beam upward. And I had never
Mm.
experienced anything like that before. I looked up and I looked to the side. And right as I looked to the side, Kevin was walking in the room, and he looked over at me when he walked in. And as he looked at me, I felt something like somebody just touched my heart like that. And I just felt this energy go throughout my entire body. It was amazing. And I wasn't sure if Kevin was a real deal at that point until that moment. And then I saw him walk
Okay.
down the hallway, and I said, okay, this is real. This is this 33-degree Mason thing, this brotherhood thing. This is real. I don't know what he just did,
This
but
is
he did
real.
something that I've never had happen to me in this lifetime. And so I
Mm.
knew I wanted to spend more time with him. So, fast forward to years later when we got the opportunity to spend 24 hours with him. We had an incentive through the partner program, through the Kevin Trudeau fan club, where if I
Mhm.
paid for a full year in advance, not paid, if I contributed for a full year in advance at what at that time was the highest level, then I would get a fly on the wall with that. And that sealed the deal for me. And
Okay.
so it was an easy decision.
Awesome. So you get to the house. What were your first impressions? You walk in. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So first, when I got to the house a little early, which I didn't mean to. I was about 5 minutes early, and we were instructed to get there after 3 o'clock. And I was trying to time the Uber ride just perfectly. but they got me there about 5 minutes till 3. I got out of the car and I thought, okay, I'm just going to wait outside. I don't want to disrupt anything. And right as I got out of the Uber car, somebody opened up the door, and it was a young guy named Camden. This is one of the
Hmm.
butlers there. He opened the door
Hmm.
and he welcomed me in. I mean, right off the bat, when I got out of the car, I was treated like I was a celebrity, and he
Hmm.
said, let me take your bags. Saul, the other, Kevin's kind of primary, house care guy, butler,
Yep.
chef, everything Saul does. Saul said, set your bags over to the side. No need to carry them upstairs. We'll take them up there. I'll show you to your room. You can take as long as you need in your room. You can change clothes. You can unpack. When you come down, I'll show you the rest of the house with the other fly on the wall. And so, I went up there. I kind of unpacked my stuff and I came downstairs and Saul was waiting in the kitchen with the other fly on the wall. And right off the bat, I was like, okay, this is high class, but it's also comfortable. It didn't feel like hoity toity. I wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was out of place. I wasn't treated like,
Mm.
feel like you're from the lower regions of society or something. I was treated like I was supposed to be there and I was a guest in the home right from the get go. And so Saul asked me how my trip was and every treated me just very respectfully. Of course, the house is massive and it's beautiful. As soon as you go in, you see this incredible chandelier in this giant sort of dining area. You look to the right, there's this enormous kitchen. And everything is just perfectly, beautifully organized, very clean. But there weren't a lot of people in there. There was only Saul and Camden. It
Yeah.
wasn't like he had crew working there all the time. It's just very
Mm.
simple. So it was elegant but simple. It was very high class but welcoming. And so it was kind of both in many
Okay.
different categories. And yeah, and so Saul took us on a tour around the house, but he really treated it. He showed us Kevin's room and his closet. I mean, I felt like I was Kevin's, cousin or something. I felt like he was treating me like a family member, just very, very
Yeah.
welcoming right from the get go.
It makes you feel right at home, doesn't it? Like you're supposed to be there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did, was did anything about it? Did anything surprise you? Anything maybe you weren't expecting?
That's a good, yeah, that's a really good question. I'd have to think about that one. I think the main thing that surprised me was I thought, man, a house this size, this nice, this clean, there wasn't a speck of dust in the entire house, not on the picture frames,
Mhm.
not on, on the corners of the floor, not on the baseboards, elaborate baseboards. I mean, it was crystal clean. It was brightly lit, all turned on. And I just wondered, how do they keep this house like this? You'd have to have a crew of 20 people just to keep it that immaculate and clean. And right off the bat, I just thought he's so simple, but he's so effective and efficient. He
Yeah.
uses probably the least effort possible, whether it's through a group of people or through his own efforts to keep everything in beautiful working order. And that was a big surprise. And then the other one was I was very surprised. This came a little bit later as Kevin showed us around the kitchen. He said,
Mhm.
Kevin told myself and the other fly, he said, any food you see in this house, you're welcome to. If you want dessert, look in the freezer. We have some organic vanilla bean ice cream. And he was talking about the ice cream, like I wanted to buy some of the ice cream after he told me about it, and he says
Mhm.
there's chicken in the fridge. It's all organic. There's salmon, there's guacamole, there's, all this stuff. There are berries, there's yogurt, the dishes. Here's everything. Help yourself. He said, you're on your own for the food. There's no preordained eating time. You can stay in the room or you can stay around me the whole time. But that surprised me just that like the entire kitchen was mine for the 24 hours. It was really like I was in a high-end hotel where they were taking care of me and making sure that
Yep.
I was happy.
Yep. Yeah. You know what? You know what I loved when I was there. I loved how he had the snacks in the bedrooms and like the organic toothpaste and like everything was just you didn't need to bring anything. If they had a toothbrush there for you if you didn't bring it, slippers and the robe. It very much was like a high end hotel, not a hotel, a nice hotel, the Four Seasons, which is that's
Oh
Kevin's
yeah.
gold standard. Is it like the Four Seasons? Um, so about Kevin, tell us a little bit. about your observations about his operating system, the Kevin Trudeau OS. How does he go through his day, and what did you observe? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'll start with broad and then I'll go into a couple of details. I ended up taking,
Great.
while I was there, about 22 pages of notes. And
Hmm.
even Kevin said
Common.
when we
A
were
lot of
talking to
people
me,
have.
and he said, wow, you have notes there. Yeah. And there was so much, going through them. Like I
Hmm.
saw a lot of repeat cognitions that I had or repeat observations, but there was a lot of different stuff. I mean, it was 22 notes of quality stuff. But from the get go, right off the bat, first off, he stopped what he was doing. He came over to say hello to the two flies. Very welcoming, very direct, but in a very relaxed way. So Kevin is supremely efficient and organized and on the ball, but he's completely relaxed at the same time. Totally relaxed. There were times where when he was on a phone call and he was put on hold, he sat back in his chair and put his feet up on the desk, like he's your uncle or something, just super relaxed. And you look back as you're sitting watching him, you're thinking like, okay, there's not really much going on here. But then you look back about 45 minutes later and he's gotten 3 or 4 things done that were on his B priorities, because he got the A priorities done for the day already. And so his ability to be so focused and on the ball, usually what I've seen is when focus gets they're a little bit stressed. And Kevin was not that at all. And then the contrary, if they're relaxed, they're not getting things done, in superb, organized fashion. They're more relaxed,
Hmm.
but their productivity suffering a little bit. And I've kind of
Yeah.
operated that way myself, like, okay, I'm going to be more relaxed and get less done, or I'm going to be more focused. I'm going to get things done. I'll be a little tense. It might stress me out a little bit, but it'll be worthwhile. Then I'll relax after that. Just love it. That's a big part of the reason he gets work all day long. He doesn't he's getting stuff done. He's productive, but he's not excessive in his efforts. It actually
Hmm.
reminds me a lot about Bruce Lee. If you ever read any of his old writings, the way that Bruce Lee fought was like, I'm going to do the minimal amount possible, but the attack
Hmm.
that I do is going to be pinpoint, and that's going to be, the killer. And so Kevin was like, okay, the activity that he does gets the job done because he knows what the objective is going into the activity. Because, and this is the main thing that I saw time and time again, and you and I have talked about this, and I've talked to a few other flies,
Hmm.
is he has a list that he keeps, his to-do list within his
Hmm.
priority manager. And that to-do list, he'll read through the entire list. And as he reads each item, he'll say, okay, this is a B priority. Where do I want to put this later on this week? And then they'll look ahead and they'll go, okay, next Sunday, I don't have any appointments, but I've already got 6 things on Sundays. There's no way on God's green earth I'm going to do that many things on Sunday. So he goes, let's look at the
Hmm.
following Monday. And he writes it down there, goes to the next item, says, okay, this is another B priority. And then he talks through it. Why is this item here? How important is it? Is it a high B priority? Is it a lower B priority? Does it go on the later list? And he does that with every item. So he basically rewrites the entire list. He erases stuff when he's going to rewrite it somewhere else. So it's not written in 2 places. If he's done the thing, he scratches it off and it's done. And he celebrates when it's done. Hey, ooh, I got that. Ooh, I got that one done already. Yay, hooray. We're
Hmm.
having a winning
Hmm.
day. And he says positive things, goes on to the next thing. And you're watching him and you're like, it's like you're watching a football game. It's like you're pulling for him. He's excited and
Hmm.
you're excited for watching him. So he has the energy high
Yep.
the whole time. And then after he does that list and he decides, okay, what's going to be my next activity? Am I going to take a break for a few minutes? Am I going to go eat something? Am I going to use the restroom? Um, and then what am I going to do for my next objective? What's next on the list? And so he'll go and take a break, maybe for 10 or 20 minutes or something. And then he'll come back, he'll get the next activity done. And then he gets done with that. He celebrates. Then he looks back at the list again and he goes through the entire list again. I mean, from the beginning, the entire list with total patience. It's like he's working with a little child that like needs it re-explained to them every time. And he's perfectly patient with it. But he says it all out loud. and then he erases stuff that got done. And sometimes in the last hour, something he had on us before somebody else got done. So he goes,
Mhm.
"Ooh, Dustin got that done. All right. We are going in the right direction. We are winning. Look at that. What a guy, you know." And then he takes that off the
Mhm.
list. And so he does
Okay.
this, I don't know how many times in a day, 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, depending on the day. But he lives by that list and that calendar in the priority manager. And when he does it, he
Yep.
makes it look so easy. It's just so effortless, so simple, and makes it look easy, but he gets a ton of stuff done, and it gets done when it needs to get done, and nothing falls through the cracks. And then there's, of course, there's this whole filing cabinet in his filing system, which again is a separate conversation that keeps everything totally organized. If somebody were to tell me what Kevin does to stay organized and tell me all the different things that he does, I'd say, okay, this guy's got obsessive compulsive disorder. I mean, this guy's crazy. You know, he just,
Mhm.
he probably won't, you know, he'll freak out if he sees a speck of dust on his desk or something like that and start yelling at the cleaning crew.
Mhm.
But he's not that way.
Mhm.
He's relaxed,
Mhm.
but he gets the things done that a person who is that way would get done and more because he's so relaxed. But to go back to that priority manager with the to-do list in there, written in pencil, he writes over and over, but he also says verbally what those things are, why they're important, where they fit in with the big picture. They fit in with that aspect of his dream, because of course we don't know the big dream. And so he
Yeah.
really lives by that, and he uses that as a manifesting tool, because things he writes in there, either he gets done or opportunities come up, situations that make it easier for him to get that done, or other people get those things done, and then they take him off the list. So it's in doing that, it's like he's working hand in hand with the universe to get these things done and move everything forward.
Yeah, Brian, you just shared so much gold in like the last 5 or 6 minutes. First of all, if you're watching this, go back, rewind to like when Brian started talking about 6 minutes ago and play it again because it's all right there. And so I'm just going to hit a couple things that you just commented on. Okay. So he makes it look so easy. And yes, I pointed that out to him too when I was there with him. Like, this is your manifesting tool, isn't it? You want to see what a Harry Potter magic wand looks like, guys? This is a priority manager. This is like a real life magic wand or a lightsaber. But he made it look easy. He went back to his list over and over again, did his 1 through 31s for his today. Is it an A priority? Is it a B priority? He gives himself little wins. Yay, I'm having a winning day. Dustin got that done. He's literally using the training in every minute, the things he teaches us about, celebrating the wins, about completing a cycle of action, all the things that are in our basic training. You were literally watching him do it. And let me ask you this, Brian, how much does Kevin get distracted while he's working? Like on other things? Does he get distracted ever?
Not at all. No, I mean
Zero.
there was a period of time. It was probably 15 minutes where he was working on a landing page with Dustin, because the next day he had a partner call in which he was promoting the processes. And this was the payment plan for the processes, where you pay a lump
Mhm.
sum, and then you pay a very low monthly amount, and then you pay a balloon payment at the end. And
Yep,
so
I remember that.
he was working on that with Dustin. And he's sitting there. Yeah, he's in front of the computer screen like this. His body didn't move for about 15 minutes, other than moving his finger to scroll down. And actually, he commanded, gave a directive to Dustin. He'd go scroll, scroll, stop. Okay, do you see where it says, your whatever? This will be the best. This will be the best thing you've ever done in your life. Something like that. And Dustin goes, well, wait, wait. Okay, yeah, I see it. Kevin goes, you see it? Yes, I see it. Double confirms. And he goes, I want it to say, and then he says the next thing. And then he goes, got it? Yeah, got it. Okay, scroll. Scroll. He did that whole thing for about an hour, but there are
Yeah.
periods where he did not move his body at all. He didn't move his head. His
Yep.
eyes were on the screen, and he's relaxed when he's doing it. And I was watching his posture, and I was realizing he's got an incredible posture. He's sitting there with
Mm,
perfect posture. He's like a yogi businessman.
yep.
It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, when I used to live with him, Brian, he was in that basement. We had this big, full, furnished basement in the house we lived in over on Warden Way. And when I would go down, this was like a small house. It wasn't like the mansion he's living in now. This is when he first got out. but he would be working focused at his desk, and looking at a landing page or something like that. And I would just know when I would go down to do my laundry or something, and I'd walk past him. I saw that look on his face, and I knew, don't talk to him, don't address him, don't distract him. He's in total focus. And I'd be down there screwing around, and not a word, and he wouldn't look over, he wouldn't look away from what he was doing. And I remember that from early. It wasn't even that being rude. He was just, I'm in total focus mode. And it's like to the exclusion of everything else. You go back to your wish is your command, and he talks about reading the novel, and you're engrossed in the novel. And someone walks in the room and says, Charlie, earth the Charlie. You could earth the Charlie Kevin all day long, and he wouldn't hear you when he's in that focus
Yeah,
mode. And again, when you see someone that focused, it looks easy to do, doesn't it? And it's not so simple. It's not so simple. It is so easy to get distracted. Kevin likes to say so often, you are engineered for success, but programmed to fail. And what that means is you have the seed. We all have the seeds of greatness in us, but the media, distractions, the elite, things are designed to keep us distracted and chasing stupid things, and not focused and not effective. So the environment kind of works against you sometimes. And he's such a master of it. It makes it look so easy. But when we're sitting here trying to focus, it's like, oh, okay, I really got to learn this manually. Get better at it. Get better at writing the lists, and get better at all of it. And it's 11. I mean, Brian, you're a level 8 member, right? Of Gin.
Yeah,
So you've been through the highest. Okay, so for those of you who are not, that is the highest current level available of Kevin's training. And I just facilitated a level 8 part 2 this weekend. So I'm still recovering, from 4 days of that. And it's literally about, he's good at what he does, not because he just learned some information. Okay, I need to focus and do this. It's because of the mental training. You get into those higher levels, you get into level 7 and level 8, and it's less about learning information and more about training the mind the way you would train your muscles in the gym. And you can attest to that. And that is one of, I think, the secrets of the elites, the secrets of the brotherhood, and the secrets that he's now sharing with us. That's why they're so effective, because they have minds that they can control, and the mind doesn't control them. That's how you can focus for long periods of time. And that's the difference between failure and success.
It's doing the things that we can all do, but doing them consistently and doing them at a high level. It's like a punch. Saying the training, a punch is not a punch; it's a punch. Your first punch you ever is probably not a very good punch compared to Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch that he mastered over, 10 years.
Yep.
There's so much into every little activity that he does. And so it's cleaner, it's smoother. It looks simple and easy because he makes it look that way, because he's practiced it perfectly so many times. And you see all that in action. That's just it, is that I've never seen it in action with someone at Kevin's level doing it. I had learned about it from Kevin and some successful people here and there, but I have not met anybody else who has every facet of success that Kevin has, with the health, the mindset, the meditative, Zen focus, the happiness, the joy, the ability to connect with so many people. I've seen people that have some of those elements fairly strong, but not the rest of them. Very few people have any 2 of those elements. Kevin has all of them. And then you watch him, like, okay, this is actually real. He's not just giving us stuff that he doesn't do. It's actually real. It's actually somebody doing. It's not fluff. He's not, just canning, not rehashing stuff that he read in books. He's telling us how he lives his life. And that's what all the training is. Kevin does all of the training, and you see him do it just in 24 hours. You see him do almost every facet of the training.
Yeah. No, I don't hear a lot of people mention, and I was just thought of it listening to you, is with every facet of success, his relationships. And I don't mean his relationships with students like us. I mean, like his relationships with business associates and very successful people he's known for years. I mean, he doesn't have any enemies that are out there to get him. I know the government was out there to get him for a while, but really when it comes to it, some people have
Yeah.
business rivals. Some people have bad blood with people they used to be partners with. He doesn't have that. It doesn't seem like it. He just doesn't. I mean, I've been in the room with him when he picks up the phone and it's somebody from one of these organizations he hasn't talked to in years. He's like, hey, what's it? They're just calling him. They're calling him for advice, and there's just goodwill on so many levels. So I see that. I see a lot of good karma too. That's uncommon for
Yeah.
a lot of people that's successful. Um, what
Yeah.
surprised you the most about him as a person? Not as a teacher, not as a brand, not as the Kevin Trudeau, but just as a human being. Did anything really surprise you about Kevin?
Yeah. One of the main things that surprised me is just how much of a human he still is. Even though he's this supreme, he's sort of an icon. He, you know, in who he is and his persona, he's a celebrity in many respects. He knows a lot of celebrities. He's this big, enormous personality. But when you're with him, he treats you like he's your friend or like he's your uncle, like your family member. And he's just so easygoing and natural. Now, there are times where he's not easygoing, where he wants something to change. He wants to get the energy moving for sure. But there was, it was really interesting. One of the more fun things I got to watch him do was be on a customer service call with a lady who worked with Apple. And he had this issue where he kept having emails he had already deleted come flooding into his account by the thousands. I mean, it was driving him
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
And so he's talking to this lady, and by the end of the call, it's like they're best friends. He's on
Mm,
one hand, he's getting frustrated because she had him do one solution and it didn't work because the emails came flooding back in, and he gets fired up for a second. He goes, "Oh, I think we got no. Look at this. This is what I'm talking about. I can't. This can't happen. This can't. Damn it. Why is this happening?" And the lady's like, "I'm so sorry, so sorry." But then after he did
it's
that, the air was clear. There was no, you can feel
okay.
tension in the air sometimes, like if somebody
Yeah.
yells at somebody else or there's some kind of a conflict. You can feel it if you know a couple, maybe they just had an argument, then you go and talk to them, something, you can feel it in the air. When Kevin would do that, when he would let some frustration or emotion out for a second, after he did it, it was gone. The air was clear. And so he confronts things right when they need to be confronted with clarity. He communicates absolutely clearly. And then after that, everything is good because everybody's clear on what has to happen. There's no tension. And so I saw him do that, with a customer service representative. I didn't see him get upset or frustrated with anybody else, but I saw him interact with Danielle, and I saw him interact with Saul. And he's funny too. At one point he and Danielle were sitting over in a couch kind of far off by a window, and Kevin looks up and he goes, "Oh, there's a new light I never noticed before." And he goes, "Saul,
Mm,
where is the light switch for this light? We have a new light. We don't know where the light switch is." And so he's like laughing about it. And then Saul kind of comes around looking for it. So he's a totally like normal guy in many respects. But he's funny, he's engaging, easy to relate to. Um, as I said, he's both relaxed and focused before. He's also both um what needs to happen will get done. Um, and at the same time, everybody who's a part of it will know what they need to do. And then when the work is done, he'll joke with them and connect with them and leave them on a positive note. And so
mm.
just seeing what a pleasant guy he is was really like a joy to see, and also a learning experience.
Wow. If I may ask, if I may intrude upon your privacy, you don't have to answer this. Everybody at the end of their fly on the wall gets, to sit for a half hour or an hour with Kevin and ask him questions. What did you ask him?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There was a point where we were sitting in the garage with Kevin. He's smoking a cigar while he's working on stuff. I think it was halftime for a college football game,
Okay.
and it was halftime. It was the Indiana Oregon game, and so we were in there. And I was thinking, as I'm watching Kevin, I'm taking all these notes. I'm thinking, like, okay, I got to have some good questions because he's asking if we have questions, and that's one-on-one time with Kevin. I want to
Yeah.
take advantage of the opportunity, and so I start thinking, like, okay, what can I ask him? And I'm like looking at my notes. I can't find anything because I don't know what to ask. I'm just observing and just taking notes. And so then I thought, because he talks to himself a lot, I thought to myself, I go, well, I wonder if he told us that he does talk to himself, but I wonder if he talks to himself this much. I don't know if you can hear the dog barking in the background. One of my neighbor's
Yeah, not
dogs is
really. Okay.
very protective. Okay, good. All right. But I thought, okay, I know what I'm going to ask him. I'm going to ask him if he actually talks this much to himself, or if it's just for the benefit of the plies on the wall. And so I write down the question. And about maybe 30 seconds after I wrote it down, Kevin's sitting there. He's got his cigar and he's actually reading partner comments with the cigar, just in his teeth like this, looking at the comments with his glasses on. And he goes, flips the comment over. He looks up and goes, takes the cigar out of his mouth. By the way, I talk to myself like this all the time. This is not just for the benefit of the flies on the wall. I do this all the time with everything. Puts the cigar back in his mouth, keeps reading the comments. And I'm like, okay, I don't have that question anymore. I thought the question and then he answered it probably 30 seconds after I thought it. And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. That's interesting. I doubt it's coincidence, but it could be. So then later on, where Kevin goes to the theater room, in between tasks that he's doing, to dos, and we're watching an episode. I think it was of Columbo. So it's kind of this old TV show, a little bit cheesy, and I'm trying to follow what's going on. And I'm like, is Kevin showing us this for a reason? Is there something significant to this? So I'm actually taking notes on the plot of the show. And then just as I started doing that, Kevin just hits mute. He's sitting up, in front of both of us, and just kind of looks to the side and look back at us. And he goes, I turn on the TV in between doing tasks. There's no specific reason for this particular show, anything like that. This is just to sort of quiet down my conscious mind and let my subconscious mind take things over. So nothing too spectacular here. I just like to relax in between doing activities and let things settle in. And then he hits the unmute button and it starts playing again. I'm like, okay, there goes that question.
Yeah, there goes that
And
question.
so I
Yeah,
asked him
that's
that. Yeah, he already answered it. And when we had the one-on-one time, I asked him, because he asked if we had any questions. I said, well, I had more questions, but you answered them after I thought them. I would think a question and then you would just say it out loud to us. And as I was saying that, he started nodding and he goes, I can feel it, I could sense the question. And he goes, that's a part of just communication and being really clear. You can sense things in the field. I'm like, will you sense dead on what my question was? And then I realized, as he was explaining that, I realized that's what he does with the club. That's what he does with his partner. When he comes out and he does a partner call and there's a certain topic, it's because he's read the energy and he knows where
yeah.
that's sort of in aggregate. And then he responds to that. So when he responds to you, he really hears you. He hears what you're saying because he knows, he can feel the intention and the energy. And I know because he did it with me. I mean, I was like,
Yeah.
this is crazy as it was happening. And then I was like, I guess it's not crazy because it's just kind of what he does.
Yep. Yeah, that's the high level stuff. He can see the field, he can see your bank. You got a question, you got something in there, he can see it. This is a little higher level stuff, but that ability is there. Kevin isn't just a successful guy who works hard. He has abilities, we'll say. More on that later.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess just to close it up here, Brian. So you leave this house with new eyes after your 24 hours. Maybe tell us one or two things that you started doing differently after your fly on the wall, something you adopted and used in your life.
Sure. So I'll say this because, and I'll add one element in addition to the question you asked me, but I'll answer the question directly. As soon as I left his house, I was in such high energy there. I really felt amped up the whole time I was there and welcome. And I felt a sense of love too, just a sense of welcoming, like, we want you here. We love you. We're happy that you're here. Just felt that really strong the whole time. When I left and I got to the airport, as I was walking to my plane, I started to come down and I felt this feeling of depression. Like how, I started these things coming up. Like, I want to be back there. I want to spend more time there. I want to learn directly from Kevin. I want to be more like Kevin. Why am I still living it's a nice condo, but why am I in a condo? I'm not in a mansion. Kevin got out of prison 3 years ago with nothing. And he's in a mansion with two butlers and an amazing wife. And,
Mm.
everybody else loves him. I'm like, what is going on with me? What is wrong? And I was feeling like angry and depressed and like, why am I not doing this? So I had all these things kick in, and um, that was really an effect of being in this high energy. Also seeing somebody super successful, seeing that it really does happen. And
Mm.
there's special things about him, but it's also not special. He's doing the things that he's been telling us to do since 2009. And so I'm like, why am I not applying this? What do I need to do? And one of the biggest changes I made that I'm still doing now, and of course, you notice I'm smoking a cigar on the
Mhm.
but I not just smoking cigar. I didn't start that until after a while after the fly on the wall. But as soon as I got home, I said, okay, Kevin takes time to rest between tasks. Number one, he knows when he's done with the task. What I had gotten in the habit of doing was there was no end to the tasks that I was doing. It wasn't like, okay, this is my objective. Here's where I know that I'm done. I was like, okay, I've got a bunch of stuff to do. I'm just going to start doing stuff and work as long as possible until I'm too tired to do anymore. And then I'll go to sleep and then I'll wake up and start over again. I was not defined in my objectives, even little stuff, ordering something on Amazon, getting up and putting new printer paper in, organizing my closet, like doing the laundry and actually folding the clothes before I start doing something else. So I started defining my small tasks better just in my day to day life, and then celebrating when I get done doing the task, and then taking some time to relax. So I've got a couple of chairs on my back patio. I've lived in this house for almost 10 years. The total number of times before that fly on the wall that I sat on this back patio was probably 3 times in 10 years, because I wouldn't sit down a lot unless I was at my desk chair. I wouldn't sit down and watch TV. My roommates would joke with me. I rent out my room, my place. And they would say, "Why do you even have a couch? You never sit in it." I'm like, I don't know. It's for you guys, and I can't have a living room without a couch. But I never sat in my couch. I wouldn't sit down to eat. I would eat standing up in the kitchen while doing other stuff. And so I started actually taking time to relax, and then also taking time when I would relax. I would call. I do call now more my mom, my dad, family members, friends, other global information network members, and just actually take time away from just thinking I need to work all the time. So I was doing a ton of activity without accomplishment. I was confusing activity with accomplishment. And in doing so, I was negatively impacting my relationships because I just wasn't available to the people in my life. And so I changed that. I don't know that I'm getting more different. I don't know that I'm getting a greater number of things done. I'm probably getting fewer things done overall. I'm doing less activity overall, but I'm getting more important things accomplished, and I'm enjoying my life so much more. It's unbelievable. So what I did is I didn't come home and just hit the pedal to the metal. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, work so many hours a day. That's not what I did. I said, you know what? I was actually doing a program where I was learning how to train people online, and I was not enjoying it. And so within a couple of weeks of getting back, I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not enjoying it. I don't enjoy any of the activities. I don't enjoy the end result. Why am I doing this? And I stopped doing it. It freed me up. I started spending more time just by myself, more time outside, more time on my patio, and more time connecting with people that are important to me. Because I saw how much joy Kevin has in his life. I saw how much he gets done, but I also saw how happy he is. And I said, okay, that's
Yeah.
really what I want more than anything. And that's the main thing, the primary thing that I've taken away from that, that I still am living my life differently now as a result of that.
Outstanding. Yeah, you mentioned that confusing activity with accomplishment. So you're less busy. You're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off, but you're getting more important things done. And that's what success is. There's the few important, Kevin's told me this before, there's the few important things that you need to make sure get done. Don't confuse activity with accomplishment. Why are you organizing the staplers on your desk when you need to be making the sales call? The sales call takes, a minute. Organizing the staplers could take half an hour, and you have confused. If you're wasting time with that, you have confused activity with accomplishment. It's knowing what to do and then celebrate the win. Go watch Columbo, like he does. And life doesn't
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
the hard hustle that so many of us think it does, because we confuse activity with accomplishment. Brian, you have shared so much gold with us today. Thank you so much. Before I close it up, is there anything else you would like to say, comment on, anything I didn't ask that you'd like to share?
I don't think though. There's so much more to share. We could talk for another 6 hours, and there would still be more stuff, coming out of it. Especially, I got
Yeah.
my notes, and you could have your. There's so much more, but
Yep.
no, there. I don't think there's anything more I would add. Other than, of course, if anybody's on the fence about doing this, um, just don't be on the fence. I mean, how? When else can you get an opportunity like this? To live in the home of somebody who's living a life that we want to live. I would take that opportunity. It's well worth it. And I would wager that every other fly on the wall would say the same thing. I don't think there's anybody that would say they didn't get an incredibly positive experience from it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for joining us, everyone. This has been Brian Debates with David Krueger talking about 24-hour fly on the wall in person training with Kevin Trudeau. Make sure you give me a subscribe, a like, smash that notification bell. Otherwise, YouTube won't let you know when I put up new videos. You can click the links in the description below if you'd like to get my free ebook all about the fly on the wall, summarizing many of our experiences. You can join my free school group where we're doing a lot of great work in there. And I'll put a link to Kevin's Fly on the Wall page so you can check that out. He's offering them for a limited time and they can disappear at any time. So until then, I'm David Krueger. I will see you next time. I love you. Bye bye.